In a significant development in Russia-Ukraine peace efforts, Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, has landed in Moscow for crucial talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This marks the fourth meeting between the two men as Trump pushes for a peace deal before reaching his 100th day in office. While Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has signaled willingness to finalize a deal, major sticking points remain, especially with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky rejecting territorial concessions. Meanwhile, trade tensions between Washington and Beijing continue to rattle the global economy amid contradicting statements from both sides. President Trump says negotiations are underway and that he spoke with Chinese President Xi Jinping, while Chinese officials deny any talks are taking place. Yet reports hint at potential Chinese exemptions on key U.S. imports, offering a sliver of hope for de-escalation. I'm Mona Musarhi. Let's get in focus. Axios has reported that U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in the fourth meeting just a day after President Trump publicly urged Russia to halt fighting with Ukraine and finalize a peace deal. The talks follow what Trump called a final offer to end the war, which includes U.S. recognition of Crimea as Russian and acceptance of other territories seized. Ukraine rejected the plan and, along with the UK, France and Germany, submitted a counter-proposal, according to Axios. Axios added that Trump told Time magazine he believes both Putin and Zelensky want a deal and said negotiations are close. Still, Ukraine has firmly rejected key parts of Trump's plan, especially the recognition of Crimea, casting doubt on how close a resolution really is. For more analysis, we're joined from Moscow by Sergei Markov, former advisor to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, good evening to you, sir, and welcome to In Focus. And let me start by asking you now, Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, has just arrived in Moscow, met with Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin. What are your expectations from this meeting at this time, particularly after Trump's recent peace proposal?
First of all, Steve Witkoff, as I know, already left Moscow after 3 hours negotiation with Vladimir Putin. Steve Witkoff, in fact, alter ego of Donald Trump, is Donald Trump's personal friend and special official envoy. So, in fact, it was negotiation between Putin and Trump in Moscow Kremlin. And as we understand, both sides try to reach final agreement after some proposals and suggestions which have been expressed by European countries and by Ukrainian regime. And probably they come to the final compromise. If so, Steve Witkoff will bring this final compromise to the Donald Trump for the final approval.
Do we know anything about this compromise you're speaking about, sir?
We don't know details about those compromise. We have a lot of rumors. I want to say you that a lot of such rumors are wrong, because most of these rumors repeat anti-Russian propaganda and
yes, are not right. They are not officially reported yet.
It was not officially reported. Most of such rumors talking about territories that there should be stopping of fighting on the front line, which is naturally, but not territory is most important. Main Russian demands, it's not about territories. Main Russian demands is to stop formation of anti-Russia by methods of terror, which we could see on the Ukrainian territory. It means that stopping political repression against Orthodox Church on Ukraine, stopping political repression against Russian language, Russian culture and identity is also a very important Russian demand during this negotiation.
Now, Foreign Minister Lavrov stated that a deal is possible, but needs fine-tuning. From a Russian perspective, what are the remaining elements that need to be addressed in the potential deal?
One of the, the model, the general strategy of such peace negotiation should be something like this: ceasefire, and then moving to the constant peace deal. And it's naturally, but Russia already has experience of previous to ceasefire with Ukrainian illegal regime, Minsk I agreement and Minsk II agreement. Both of them, this ceasefire sharply violated by Ukrainian regime and by their Western partners, Western friends. That's why Russia wants this ceasefire to be not just the stage for the new period of more bloody war, but it should be way to the constant peace. That's why Russians insisting there should be no European troops occupy European troops set on the Ukrainian territory. It's one of the main obstacles which Russia demands. Another obstacle that everybody agrees is that Ukrainian economy should be direct, but where this money should be taken. European countries suggested that Russia agree that recovery of Europe should be from 200 billion euros, which belong to Russia and which is frozen by European countries. Russia, against this, Russia believes that those who want to recover Ukrainian economy want to do it, but Russian money should come back to the Russia. It's another obstacle.
So we're speaking here about Russian demands that goes from territory or the Ukrainian territory totally with no European troops. This is one. And the return of the Russian money, the frozen Russian money to Russia. How about
Absolutely.
Crimea?
Crimea, we're glad if Donald Trump will recognize that Crimea is part of the Russia, but it's not so important. Crimea is absolutely clear part of the Russia. Crimean people, one of the most strong pro-Russian patriots among other Russian regions. So we glad if Crimea will be recognized by part of the Russia, but we don't care about this. We care not about Crimea. We care about what will happen in Ukraine. If Great Britain, France want to make anti-Russia on the Ukrainian territory, we're strongly against about this. Please don't talk about Crimea. Talk about Ukraine. And main security guarantee for Ukraine.
What do you mean? What do you mean here?
Back.
What do you mean here, sir, by don't talk about Crimea, but talk about Ukraine? What do you mean by this?
I mean, the change of Ukraine is mostly important. Western countries talking about security guarantee for Ukraine, we agree it should be security guarantee. But main security guarantee should be not neo-Nazi groups, not terrorists in the Ukrainian government, but Ukraine coming back to the democracy which Ukraine been before 2014. And I should remember that before 2014, during 25 years, Ukraine been in absolute security nearby the Russia during 25 years. So let's move Ukraine back to the period before 2014.
Now, this is Witkoff's fourth meeting with President Putin in recent months. What does this frequency suggest about Russia's strategy, and are those meetings moving the sides closer to a deal from your point of view?
Of course, so many meetings show that now Donald Trump administration and Vladimir Putin administration should recover U.S.-Russian relationship, which had been fully destroyed by previous U.S. administration led by Joe Biden. Joe Biden, former president of the United States, been some kind of mania who hate Russia and who hate personally Vladimir Putin. And Joe Biden administration fully destroys such a relationship. And the main, by the way, direction of negotiation between Russia and US is not Ukraine. It's attract attention Ukrainian issue, but most important is the recovering of relationship between Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine need to have more security negotiation about nuclear forces, not allowing to have a nuclear war. Russia and Ukraine should create again normal diplomatic relations, because under the previous administration, the number of diplomats had been decreased in both embassies in 30 times. Can you imagine? In 30 times. Now, American diplomats and Russian diplomats even not able to issue the visas just for traveling to each other. Recovering all the Asian transportation between two countries. So many issues which should be decided by Putin and Trump administrations.
I guess that what you're speaking about here is exclusive, since we're taking the Russian point of view. Now, Zelensky has rejected any territorial concessions, yet figures like Kiev's mayor have floated the possibility of concessions as part of a peace deal with Russia. Do you believe Russia sees this as an opening for a deal, particularly with Trump saying that Crimea will stay with Russia as part of peace negotiations with Ukraine?
There are a few issues. First of all, Russia don't care about Ukrainian government position about recognition or not recognition. Russian army, Russian soldier, its main reason of recognition that those agents already became part of the Russia.
You mean
Secondly,
here
of
that
course,
they
we
are
understand
under...
that Vladimir Zelensky doesn't like peace. He wants to continue to war very much, because if peace happens, it will be lifting of the military order. As a result, it will be new presidential election, and Vladimir Zelensky, who hated by most of the Ukrainian politicians for the war and for the high level of corruption, immediately will be removed from this position. After Zelensky will lose his presidential post, he will lose the money what he is stealing every day, and he also will be in very dangerous situation from security point of view.
No, let me get, Mr. Witkoff, let me get that clear. Let me get that clear. So now the Crimea and other parts are under the control of the Russian army. This is what you're saying. And that, if I understood right, that Russia can withdraw their army from those parts in return for Zelensky's out of power. Is this what you're saying here?
Russian territory, which officially belong to Russia, will belong to Russia. Russian can leave some small part of the Kharkiv region. But about Zelensky, Russia don't care about Zelensky. We believe that he's illegal. The problem is that Zelensky, from our point of view, cannot sign the peace deal because he's illegal now. His term is over already. And if a new president of Ukraine will come, he will say, no, this peace deal is illegal because he signed by illegal president. So it's an important point of the of Zelensky. But then Zelensky, from our point of view, not independent. he is just administrator of the new colony regime, which from the beginning was controlled by United States and now more controlled by Great Britain and France. So his opinion, we don't care about his opinion. We care about opinion of his masters, who is Great Britain, France, and European Union leaders.
Right, that was Mr. Sergei Markov, former advisor to Russia President Vladimir Putin. We thank you so much for your insights. And now we move to the latest developments regarding US-China trade war. Now, Axios has reported that US President Donald Trump claimed the US is less than a month away from finalizing potentially hundreds of trade deals, and said Chinese President Xi Jinping had called to talk business. Trump declined to name which countries are involved, and China has denied any trade talks are happening, insisting the US must drop tariffs first. Despite global economic tension and a lack of confirmed deals, Trump said talks with countries like Japan and South Korea are ongoing, and added, "I'll be finished in 3 to 4 weeks." Though nations could still return to negotiate adjustments. For more analysis, we're joined from Washington by Mr. Nicholas, Director of the EU Asian Center. Good afternoon to you, or good evening. I'm not aware exactly of the timing, but you're most welcome here to In Focus. And let me start by asking you, President Trump claims there have been trade talks with China, but Chinese officials deny any negotiations are underway. He also said that he spoke directly with the Chinese president, though the Chinese president declined to specify, or rather Trump declined to specify when or what were the discussions. In your view, what does this scarcity indicate?
I'm delighted to join you today from the IMF World Bank spring meetings in Washington, D.C. It's about lunchtime. It's about, 1 p.m. lunchtime here in America. And a lot of things happened in Washington, D.C. in the past 36 hours. Keep that timeline in mind, 36 hours. So the signals, sometimes, chaotic, but still very interesting signals between Washington, D.C. and Beijing. They all took place between Wednesday night, U.S. time, and Friday, now lunchtime. So the outside world, so if you're not Chinese or if you're not in the White House, these signals and counter signals, they may seem a bit chaotic, right? Because sometimes, President Trump says something, and then Chairman Xi Jinping says, oh no, not really, I'm not sure. So the rest of the world, understandably anxious, because financial markets were very volatile in the past 4 or 5 days. When they hear conflicting signals, they're not reassured. And so that's why there's an impression of disorganization, etc. But in reality, it's a ballet. It's like, two dancers. And these dancers are the eagle and the dragon, the only two remaining superpowers, America and China. And we're witnessing, the birth pangs of a new era. That new era is the age of geoeconomics, when military strategy, diplomacy, finance, and economics and trade are merged into one, right? Mm-hmm. Two big players. And so, yes, there are contradictions, but the news coming out of Beijing and Washington in the past 36 hours have been very positive. Everything is relative because, until Wednesday.
Now, very positive in terms of what? Because we're hearing from the United States statements, including President Trump's saying that he spoke to the Chinese president, and we hear denials from the Chinese side and other measures that are being taken here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. But everything is relative, not absolute. So until mid-afternoon on Wednesday, it was really bad. And financial operators, so big investors, that would be Canadian, American, Australian pension funds, Middle Eastern, Chinese sovereign funds, where they were selling the dollars. They were selling US stocks, etc. So there was panic on Wall Street for 2 or 3 days. And then from Wednesday onward, Wednesday night, things have recovered. Why? Because first, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he opened the doors to a de-escalation. He said, oh, but maybe things are not that bad with China, and maybe we can de-escalate that terrible trade war. And then 1 hour later, President Trump himself said, oh, yes, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is right. So he was sending a signal to China. And today, the Chinese are kind of responding to the signal. Yes, it's true. 2 days ago, Chairman Xi Jinping said that he did not speak to Trump, but now they're changing tack. And today the Chinese are saying, wait a minute, there are some very important US industrial imports we need for the Chinese industry to operate. And so what we're going to do from today, Friday onward in Beijing, we're going to remove that 125%.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. Now, the 145% tariffs imposed by Trump and China's retaliatory 125% have created economic shockwaves.
Yes.
Now, do you believe this strategy could be sustainable?
So basically, it's the birth pangs of a new era. So basically, the old era lasted 70 years. 70 years is a lot of time. And now for the past few weeks, it's like a woman in childbirth, the child pain of a newborn baby, and the baby is the new era. So of course, there is pain. So the world feels the pain, because when you have two giants adjusting and they walk, on a field, the whole field, the earth trembles. So yes, there has been volatility across the globe, across asset classes, bonds, equity, currency, everything, emerging markets, G7 countries, yes. But it looks like now things are getting better. Why? Because the Chinese have sent a counter signal today. So they think for some, not all, for some strategic industrial machine tools and advanced microchips, we in China are going to remove that 125% counter tariff. It's a start, it's a small start, but it means they're playing the game with Trump. It means that they are engaging at very high level in that de-escalation. Now, de-escalation doesn't mean that it's the end of the trade war, because that trade war, in effect, may last much longer, because basically the trade war is a symptom of something new. And that something new is the age of geoeconomics.
Mr. Meher, we really hope that what you're saying is true, and that we're having positive signals here, because we're not speaking about two countries, we're speaking about the biggest two economies in the whole world. Mr. Meher Nicholas, Director of the EU Asian Center, we thank you so much for your analysis and for your insights. That brings us to the end of today's episode of In Focus. Stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.